Right now, somewhere, someone is lying in bed at 11 p.m., scrolling through an app, and about to buy something they don't need, can't really afford, and will barely remember using in 2 weeks. They know it's a bad idea. Their brain knows the bank balance. And they're about to do it anyway. This isn't a willpower problem. It's not even really a them problem. It's a chemical one, and once you understand what's actually happening inside your skull in that moment, you'll never look at spending the same way again. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. You do something enjoyable, dopamine floods in, you feel good. That explanation is popular, and it's also incomplete in a way that matters enormously. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge's research at the University of Michigan draws a sharp line between two separate systems, wanting and liking. Wanting is the anticipation, the pull, the itch to acquire something. Liking is the actual enjoyment once you have it. Here's the twist, dopamine is mostly tied to wanting, not liking. That means the rush you feel isn't really about the purchase itself. It's about the chase leading up to it. Which is exactly why the item often feels less exciting the moment it arrives than it did the moment before you clicked buy. Here's where it gets more concerning. Research using brain imaging has shown that impulsive financial decisions activate the same reward circuits involved in other reward-seeking behaviors, and during these high-emotion spending moments, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and self-control, shows measurably reduced activity. In plain terms, in the exact moment you're deciding whether to buy something impulsively, the part of your brain that would normally say, "Wait, can we afford this?" is running at reduced capacity. You're not making a considered financial decision. You're completing something closer to a reflex. This is also why late-night purchases feel different than morning ones. Fatigue and stress lower prefrontal engagement even further, which is part of why online shopping spikes late at night. The brain's brakes are already weaker at that hour. Researchers at MIT Sloan used fMRI scans to look directly at brain activity at the exact moment of purchase, comparing cash payments to credit card payments. What they found, credit cards appear to sensitize the brain's reward networks, the same networks implicated in addictive behavior patterns. Two competing explanations exist for why. One is that credit cards numb the pain of paying. When money doesn't physically leave your hand, the brain doesn't register the loss as sharply, which removes a natural braking mechanism. The other is that credit cards actively increase motivation to spend, essentially pressing the accelerator rather than just removing the brake. Either way, the mechanism explains something almost everyone has experienced. Spending $80 on a credit card simply doesn't feel like spending $80 in cash. Your brain isn't exaggerating. It's registering a genuinely different signal. There's another layer to this. Research has found that people are significantly more likely to spend money on things they don't need when they're sad or stressed, essentially attempting to purchase a mood shift rather than an object. This connects directly back to the wanting versus liking system. When you're in a low emotional state, the anticipation of a purchase can create a temporary dopamine-driven lift, not because the object itself will fix anything, but because the act of wanting and anticipating briefly interrupts the negative state. It's a real, measurable mechanism. It's also why the emotional relief rarely outlasts the delivery truck. Not everyone is equally vulnerable to this loop, and the differences aren't just about discipline. Studies looking at dopamine receptor density, specifically a receptor type called D2, have found that people with more available D2 receptors in certain brain regions tend to be better at switching strategies when conditions change, while people with fewer receptors tend to keep repeating choices that aren't working, even losing ones. In other words, some of this variation is genuinely biological, not moral. That doesn't mean people are powerless. It means the right strategy is working with your actual brain chemistry instead of shaming yourself for lacking willpower that was never really the mechanism in the first place. If the loop runs on removing delay and lowering prefrontal engagement, then the fix is almost mechanical: reintroduce delay, and protect your decision-making window before emotion takes over. Add friction deliberately. Remove saved cards from shopping apps. Use cash or a debit card for discretionary spending, so the pain of paying signal stays intact. Install a mandatory pause. A 24 to 48 hour rule on non-essential purchases over a set amount gives your prefrontal cortex time to re-engage after the initial dopamine spike fades. Track the time of day you overspend. If it's consistently evening, that's not a coincidence, that's reduced prefrontal capacity from fatigue. Move big financial decisions to mornings. Separate wanting from needing on paper. Before buying, write down what feeling you're expecting the purchase to produce. Naming the wanting system out loud weakens its automatic grip. None of these are about having more self-control. They're about not relying on self-control in the exact moment your brain is least equipped to use it. Your spending habits were never really a character flaw. They're a predictable output of a reward system that evolved long before credit cards, one-click checkout, or late-night phone scrolling existed. Understanding the mechanism doesn't excuse the behavior, it gives you an actual lever to pull instead of just more guilt to carry. If this changed how you'll look at your next purchase, subscribe. Next week we go inside another hidden money pattern hiding in plain sight. Comment below, what time of day do you catch yourself overspending? I read every one.